You just press play on the Last Breath Huntcast, home of the Huntroversy. We're here to entertain, educate, and engage. And in case you didn't know, you only live once. But if you do it right, once is enough. Don't waste it. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 50 of the Last Breath Huntcast, home of the Huntroversy. So I am Grant, and if you listen to our intro or if you skipped through it, the word Huntroversy is in there. This is a Huntroversy-styled podcast for us. So that is a podcast in which we break down and discuss an argument within the hunting community. Our argument, this is the third part of 3 episodes in which we're discussing the ethics of harvesting and killing an animal and eating what you kill. Everyone that's hunted a time or two and been around people that have hunted have all heard the phrase, you eat what you kill. So we've been trying to discuss that over the last 3 episodes. So in part 1, I introduced the argument and we kind of discussed the ethics behind eating what you kill. In episode 2, we talked to Bobby Bashaw, and he was able to lay out his opinions on the matter. He runs a podcast that's up in the northeast corner of America, kind of in Massachusetts, and that's called the Crossbow Hunting Podcast. And we checked in and got his thoughts on the matter. And for part 3, I'm going to go ahead and call Garrett while he's on the road working today. So that was in part 1 and 2. If you are listening to this podcast right now on Spotify, iTunes, or Libsyn, somewhere like that, and you're streaming it, this podcast is also available on the Last Breath TV YouTube channel. So if you'd like to listen to this podcast on YouTube, it's right there. Just open up YouTube and search Last Breath TV, and this will be our most recent upload, and these will be uploaded to YouTube now every Monday, just when our podcast comes out. Last thing before we get rocking here, the Last Breath podcast, the Last Breath Huntcast is brought to you by Last Breath Media and Last Breath TV. If you're interested in checking out one of our hunts, check us out on YouTube and Carbon TV. If you're on social media, stay linked in with what we're doing on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you for your support in that. That really helps us out a ton. And one last thing before we call Garrett here, Carbon TV. So we were actually nominated for 3 Carbon Awards this year on Carbon TV. There's like 14 categories you can be nominated a maximum of 3 times, and we were nominated for Best Moment, Best in Hunting, and Best Rope-a-Dope Moment. So all 3 of those are deer hunts. If you followed us for any duration of time, you probably have heard of the hunt for Geronimo. Probably have heard of the hunt for Phantom, as well as Uh-Oh. So those are the 3 deer hunts that we were nominated for. And if you would go over to Carbon TV's page right now and click on Carbon Awards, you can vote for us for those 3 categories. And then that's Rope-a-Dope Moment, Best Deer Hunting, and Best Moment. So our controversial topic for episode number 50 is going to cover perspective for part 3 of the Huntroversy, and that is going to be Garrett's opinion, like I said, while he's traveling today. So we're going to go ahead and give him a call here and see what he has to say about that. I'm betting he's going to be 2 or 3 rings.
Hello.
Okay, you ready?
Yes, and I apologize about this finagle today, man. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. But we're live, and Garrett just had a work-related thing come up, so otherwise I think he would be right across the table here from me. But we're going to go ahead and start episode number 50. So that's pretty crazy that we've had 50 podcasts already, and it's not even been a year. That's kind of awesome, and we're really looking forward to sharing you guys like seasonally as whitetail season goes on and being able to podcast our way through whitetail season to share with you what we've been up to. But part 3, Garrett, I already told everybody what we were talking about, and that's the ethics behind killing an animal and eating what you kill. So let's go ahead and ask you the golden question for today, and that is, what do you think of the phrase, eat what you kill? What do you think of it?
I think that there's a lot of things that you could say here, and I listened to the first one. I haven't listened to part 2 yet, but I think at a point in the time that sounds really good. It sounds really amiable of like an outdoorsman to say that we eat what we kill. but when you think about things, unfortunately, sometimes as sportsmen, to be stewards of the land, stewards of your herd, there are things that you have to cull or kill. I mean, just being blunt, that I don't think you would consume. And when I'm talking specifically about like pests, I think me and you and the entire team does a really good job of whatever we pursue per se as a seasonality goes, or something you need to require a tag that's regulated by the state or the government, that we do a good job of maximizing the full potential of that harvest. Proudly, we butcher our own deer, we make our own summer sausage, we grind our own turkeys, all the way from antelope to bluegill. We do, but there are things that I think we don't eat, and the coined term to eat what you kill might just be a little bit too far-fetched. I think a better verbiage would maybe be to maximize what you kill, or to utilize what you kill. Like me and you, we skin nearly every single coyote that we kill.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with coons. We've skinned a ton of coons, and they're greasy and nasty, and right now they're not even worth anything. But when it comes to like the moles that I have in my yard that are a pain in my ass and it fire me up, like I kill them. I'm not going to eat them, or if there's a snake in my yard, or something along those lines that I consider a pest or a nuisance, I mean, I'm not going to eat it, so, or even a coyote. We and you have never eaten a coyote. We've dared to, but we haven't yet.
Yeah.
But I think it might be a little bit far-fetched or overreaching to think that every single thing that I have ever killed or potentially will ever kill that I'll eat is, I can't say that I will. And I don't, not being a pompous, but I don't think that me or you are bad outdoorsmen. I think we're pretty good stewards of the land. And I think we do think about the following year, and we don't try to get too zealous or bloodlusty when it comes to our harvest of the year before. We got a lot of work to do. Don't get me wrong. There's always room for improvement, but I don't think we're careless, and I don't think we're reckless with what we do,
sure.
on the lands that we manage.
And I think that phrase was coined far before like management of white-tailed deer and management of turkeys, at least for us in the Midwest, came about. Yeah. I think that term was coined just so that people didn't go out there and lay waste to animals and herds of things. Like when settlers were traveling west, we've all heard, in U.S. social studies, 5th or 6th grade, when the Western expansionism in the United States moving west and the Oregon Trail was happening, of settlers butchering thousands and thousands of bison on their way through and almost pushing them to the brink of extinction in North America. There are a small amount of bison still left here, but definitely not what there used to be. For us in Illinois and Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, and the Great Plains, if you will, there's none here, right, that aren't in captivity. So I think that phrase was coined way back then to kind of protect and guard against things like that. But I do not think personally that it holds up very true today. I think probably the best stewards of the land that I can think of off the top of my head are like the Drurys. I think they do an exceptional job of like managing their whitetail herd specifically. And I think Dr. Grant Woods, if you don't know who he is, he's a PhD wildlife biologist, and he studies deer and deer habitat, deer management, and things like that. And so he's all over YouTube if you want to go look him up. And they do a great job of doing that. But I don't think that phrase was around, back then. I don't think many people that trap coyotes or trap coons or trap beavers or otters or anything like that are probably going out there and eating those things. I mean, maybe a small percentage do, but I think that phrase is kind of old and outdated, to be honest. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah. See, where I think that term resonates with me is when you have, and this is generally speaking, but anybody that would harvest, let's say something that maybe isn't coveted as a delicious game animal. And what do I mean by that? I mean, multiple times we've gone out to Colorado and we've hunted antelope. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we'll get the feedback that, oh, it tastes like sagebrush, or it's nasty, or it's, I wouldn't eat that stuff. I think it's coming from a lot of locals who have the ability to eat elk, and that's
right.
That's like the creme de la creme. So I agree with them. Like when you compare like antelope to maybe, an antelope steak to an elk steak, yes, there's a difference, but we have eaten every antelope we've ever killed, and we've brought it back home and be like, man, this tastes great. It's fine.
Yeah.
And the same thing when you go to like a big old gnarly buck. I think there's some guys that are like, oh, you gotta dry age that buck for 12 days at least before it's even half edible, or our bucks we just grind up for dog food or what. Again, I think we've done a good job of we try to harvest our deer, bucks, especially anything, as cleanly as possible. We field dress them not as fast as possible, but as cleanly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we go through a specific set of motions where our tables are all clean, and the way we vacuum pack everything. I mean, our meat, whether I pull a backstrap out that's from a doe or the oldest buck in the woods, when I cook it on the grill, man, it tastes great. So that's where I think I have a little bit of a controversy, if you will, towards the coin, eat what you kill, in the sense that I do believe, like, you shoot a big old boar pig or whatever. I mean, there is meat there that you can use, and it's just a matter of cooking it right, processing it right, because I guarantee you can cook it to taste really good,
Pigs are kind of that weird gray area as well, too. I was talking to Pete on the phone the other night, and Pete Gentry's killed 500, 600, 700 hogs. He knows a guy that's killed 7,000, and that's just because they're rampant down there. But I know, right? And the crazy thing is, too, though, that like the thing that interests me about pigs is they are killing like the southern states. They're decimating properties and devaluing properties more than a coyote does,
right,
by 10 times. And I am okay with like those being controlled, but I would say, just because like a boar is pork, it's wild pork, right? And so what do you do now when the species that is quote unquote edible, like, we've killed a few hogs between you and I down in Texas when we were younger, and we ate them all. But if you were a person living down there and you had the ability to kill 10 a night every night all year long, that would be, there's no way you could consume that much meat. You could donate a lot of it to like, FHFH or a program like that. But what do you think in that in terms of like the pig side? Because a coyote, lots of people would say that's not very edible, but a pig is, in my opinion, edible. But it's hard because they are a total nuisance down there to the southern states. So where do you line up on that?
Well, I agree with you 100%. And we are talking maybe out of context here because we don't live it. We don't experience it. We see it at face value.
Sure.
So I do acknowledge that they're, way more incredibly destructive on any level than any of the nuisance species we have here. So I can understand why they need to figure out a way to get rid of them as fast and efficiently as possible. But from an external point of view, I do think that probably one of the most efficient ways to remove pigs is with trapping. And that's just from me again using the internet to see. Like I think I've seen guys trap, when you're talking about a trap that works while you're away from it, you can set out 20 traps, you know what I mean? Rather than when hunting, you have to be successful in hunting and you're only limited to where you're at. So on that note, I feel like trapping is a great method to effectively and use your time efficiently to get rid of as many pigs as possible. Once they're in the trap, I think there's an ability to have, hog hunting operations purchase them. I think that you could probably find locals to potentially eat them. And then if you are going to euthanize them, whether they're in a trap or you just have, like you said, go out and kill 10 pigs a night, which how much fun would that be?
Right.
Like crazy. There has to be some large scale food pantries or something along those lines that would take them as donations. Just like you said, Iowa has the HUSH program. Here in Illinois, the FHFH, which is Farmers and Hunters Feeding the Hungry. And these are programs that are free of charge to the outdoorsman that has the bounty. And essentially how they work here in the Midwest, if you're not familiar, is you can take your deer, and in this case being in the South, a hog, into a meat locker. And then there's actually a fund, whether it's privately subsidized or federally subsidized, that will pay the locker to process it, and then they donate that meat to a food pantry. So I think there are outlets for this protein for these animals, if you will, that maybe are over harvested. Because yeah, I get it. Like if me and you went out and we had just a banger of an afternoon or an evening, and we shot 10 or more hogs, it would be impossible for us to clean them all, and then we wouldn't have the freezer space for it, you know?
Yeah, they would become wasted just because we couldn't process them fast enough. They would get too hot and they risk us spoiling, right?
But I do think, I mean, there's got to be an outlet for it. And maybe I'm overstepping my bounds, but just given the size of Texas and how many people live there, I mean, I think there could be a potential for finding it. And if not, I mean, looking at it as a managerial standpoint and a biological standpoint, I mean, the way that they reproduce are almost prolific.
Yeah.
It almost yields, I don't know. I don't want to say it's justified, but it maybe that's a good word for it, that it is justified to waste some of it. And what do I mean by that? By just, you're doing more good for the land, the ecosystem, and everything that it encompasses by killing it and not utilizing it, rather than only harvesting them at a rate that you could manage. Because I mean, if me and you we don't have big families. It's just you and Michaela and me and Logan. And even if we gave our parents each a couple pigs, I mean, I think like 6 would be our quota for the year, and then we'd be like plumb full up with pork. You know?
Yeah, depending on the size of the pig, for sure.
So I don't know. I mean, what do you think? Where do you sit on that? I mean, do you think eradicating them, which it sounds like it's almost an impossible task, but you know, for the guys that are really good at it, that are efficient and can go out and kill 10, 12 a night, I mean, what's your solution for them?
This was an interesting question that somebody had brought up on a Facebook thread. When I put this question out there, somebody actually responded and said that as hunters, by trying to manage populations of things, we're kind of stepping out of line in terms of the fact that Mother Nature's been doing that for millions of years before we even set foot on Earth. And to try to think that we can play the hand of God is foolish. That was a Facebook comment that I got when I put this question out here. And I've seen those like helicopter controlled like hog eradication hunts on YouTube, and they're absolutely insane. And the amount of hogs that you can kill in a short period of time is crazy. But I personally, like you said, I don't live in a state or a place like Pete lives in, Louisiana or Texas, or a state where there are a bunch of hogs. And I wonder if at a certain point that their population would just kind of like level off in terms of like a harvest number that I can connect. You know, I look at the deer harvest numbers for Illinois every year, and I kind of like reporting them to you and talking through that with you about it and basing that on what we've seen. And did we feel like as though it was a good year for us, our family, our friends, blah, 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 while deer hunting. And right now the number in Illinois is between 160 and 210-ish thousand deer are harvested in Illinois every year. Why bow, crossbow, gun, muzzleloader, whatever. But I wonder if hogs just haven't reached their equilibrium point yet. I wonder if at a point that they would kind of stop being able to thrive, but at what cost to human agriculture and human business would that bring?
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know that. That's more for a question for a wildlife biologist that's specifically studied like feral hogs and swine and stuff like that. And I don't know if a pig's growth can slow down. That'd be Pete. If you're listening to this, holla at your boy. Let me know. I'm not sure the answer to that question, but I feel like Bobby brought up a really good point in part 2, and he kind of said this. He said that if you take whitetails and coyotes, kind of, for example, or a predator and prey scenario, and you let one go severely out of whack. So let's say that this year Illinois opened up like thermal night hunting for coyotes all year long. And they provided like free of charge like 2,000 AR setups with thermal optics and 2,000 people, were gifted these, or 2,000 groups were gifted these weapons, and they went out and we just hammered the Illinois coyote population, right? Well,
Yep.
he said because of that lack of predators, then the prey will thrive. The white-tailed deer will thrive, but because they will thrive, the predator's comeback will be quicker and swifter because there is an availability of food that's insane. It'd be like
Right.
wiping the coyotes out for, taking the coyotes out of Illinois for 5 decades, and there's not one single coyote. It would stand reason to believe that our deer population be large. There would be even less things to control them than humans, and coyotes
Right.
relatively the only predator that's capable of taking down a deer in Illinois, other than if you want to argue a bobcat or a wolf traveled south from like Minnesota or Wisconsin or something like that. But I got what he was saying, so I just don't know what that tipping point is. And conversely, if you jacked up the predator population a ton, then there would not be an availability of food for them, and they would begin to starve if their prey was all gone, and so they would start dying off, and then the prey would come back, and that's how he was saying it was kind of like a teeter-totter, which I thought was a great point. But I don't know if there's anything down south to police hogs like that, like what's going to go and kill a boar? I don't know.
That's
An alligator, if it stumbles into a swamp, maybe.
Right.
It's to a point. It's got to be humans to a point, I feel like.
So, and that's where like everybody has heard, and I know a little bit about this because I did study in college, but feral hogs are considered an invasive species, right? And so like typically an invasive species has an advantage over the native species, and that's why they thrive. Because an example that I know really well is like the Asian carp, the big head carp, or the silver carp that we have in the Mississippi and the Illinois River. That we shoot, they jump out of the air and we go bow fishing for them.
Yep.
Like those are a prolific invasive species. And what does that mean? It means that they have an ability to do better than native species in the habitat that they're in. And that's why like the fish and wildlife fisheries specifically departments in Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan are really struggling with these species because just like the hogs down there, there's not some chemical that you can't just go dump out poisonous pellets. Just like you can't go spray the water to only kill one species.
Mm-hmm.
You put out poisonous pellets and now deer and javelinas and, any of the other native species down there that feed are going to die that eat the pellets. It's not specific to hogs, just like with these invasive carp. So you have to have like a physical removal process, i.e. trapping or killing for hogs, or specialized nets and other systems for these carp to remove them. And when you look, the main thing about invasive species that really separates them out to make them, I'm going to use that word again, prolific, is their reproductive factor. So you think of like a hog, they can have multiple litters a year, litters up to 15 piglets. And when you look at like another native species, like the whitetail or a mule deer, they maybe have 1-2 fawns if it's a good mature doe a year, per year, compared to potentially
multiple
60 piglets.
Yeah,
right.
Mm-hmm.
So the reproductive rate is way, way, way more intense, which allows them to be so overbearing. And you look at even like herbaceous species, like ornamental bittersweet. We fight that on one of our farms right now. Mm-hmm. Well, what separates that from all the other native vines and bushes and shrubs is the fact that it grows by jumpers. So it doesn't need seed deposits to spread. Well, there's not hardly any native species other than strawberries that I know of off the top of my head that grow like that can just piggyback and leapfrog through the forest without having to have seed deposited. So you find these species that are undesirable that usually are brought in from somewhere else that have an advantage over the native fauna or forage, and then boom, now you have a problem. And that's, I don't know if we're getting off tangent of the eating what you kill, but that's the backstory as to how these problems start. And I think maybe that ties into the eat what you kill, or maybe not eat what you kill, because again, it's justified, right? If we don't act, swiftly and aggressively almost, maliciously, like we won't be able to take care of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. So is it ethical to do it just for the standpoint of, like you said, taking care of the other native species that have been there for years and years and years? If there's an outsider,
Right.
if there's an outsider coming in, as a person that lives there and kind of oversees the management of those herds, by the Illinois and federal legislation and departments, otherwise known as the DNR, like what can we do if we don't police those animals to a point, to protect the other ones? The other ones would
Yeah.
kind of cease to exist. So, yeah, I like what you said there. The next thing I have is, how would you respond to that question if you saw somebody that you didn't really know, or maybe you do know and you just don't talk to very much, like not somebody that's not a friend, but that's a little further disconnected than like a work associate or something like that. If somebody told you that not eating something you kill or killed was unethical, how would you respond to that person? What would you tell them?
I mean, when I'm one not to shy away from confrontation, but I think I've hopefully matured a little bit. I think the biggest thing is I try to understand where this question's coming from, because I think hopefully there would be some understanding on my end, and I don't want this to come out the wrong way, but I feel like a lot of vegans or plant-based, diet people have this really strong mentality of, you shouldn't eat anything. And if you do, then the only way to justify it is to fully process it or cook it. I mean, when it comes to that, I think I would probably answer their question with a question and ask them if they, kill the weeds in their yard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's like the biggest counter argument that I could find. Like, you want a nice yard, right?
Yeah.
Well, then why do you kill all the dandelions? Well, because I don't want them there. They're pests. They're weeds. Well, unfortunately, sir, ma'am, that's the same way that you have to look at. And for the most part, I feel like, and this is a question directed at me, if they're asking me about, let's say, a raccoon, we went on a coon hunt, they saw the picture, and then did you eat them? No, we didn't, but we spun them out, or we took them to the fur buyer or whatever, then they rattled that question off. I think I would try to answer the question with a question and get them to maybe understand, like, hey, this is why, we do it. And maybe it'd take hold, maybe it wouldn't, but I think that'd be the best way to do it, to get them to understand.
To get them to understand the opposite point of view by kind of presenting a similar scenario and just saying, hey, if you feel this way, then why don't you do this, or why do you believe this? Because
Right. Or
that seems a
you
little
pull the
weird.
weeds in your garden? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they're plant-based, well, why are you killing the weeds? You just should let them grow in your tomatoes and have a little bit of the fertilizer. You know what I mean? It's that same kind of principle there.
Yeah.
You remove them for the better of the garden, and the garden may be the piece of ground or the whatever we're doing, and that for mostly managerial reasons. I mean, I don't get me wrong, we love hunting. Like it's fun to go shining coons, and it's fun to call coyotes in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not going out there like we got to go to work today. Like, oh, we got to go kill coyotes, or we're not going to have a good fun crop. You know what I mean? Like, we enjoy it. I don't want you to think that we like that this is some type of chore. Because hunting coyotes compared to pulling weeds are a lot different. Like, if you ask me which one to do, I mean, every time we're going coyote hunting.
Yep.
But the reason we're doing it, there is more of a purpose behind it than just pulling a trigger and just killing something.
Yep. So going on that coyote kick and kind of down that road, where do you think there's a line between big game and pests and eating what you kill? Because I think that lots of people have agreed and said that they've agreed on social media, and they've just said, there's a big difference between like a federally recognized big game species and a pest. And I do think there is quite a big divide there, but where do you think the line is drawn? Where do you think there is maybe an animal that is considered big game that's like, should that maybe be a pest, or should a pest that's kind of in that box be considered like a big game species, like a wolf and a coyote, right? Like in Illinois, a coyote is seen as a pest, but a wolf and some western states are protected.
Right.
You can't
So I
kill
think
them.
that-
You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. It's just a bigger version, right?
Yes, yes. And I don't know if the question so much is what is the difference between like an apex predator and a pest as it is where is the line? Because I think predator species is a very, very like sensitive topic of eating what you kill, right? Like a coyote, they're for people that haven't hunted them around here, I mean, we do have some really pretty ones, and typically we skin those out, but we also have some mangy looking chupacabra coyotes running around that, gray skin, and you're like, how the heck is this thing even alive?
Like no tail fur.
Right. Like we double take when we shoot them. Like, what the heck is that? Like when you call in a mangy ass coyote and they're, like I am not going to eat that. I don't care unless it's a survival situation. Like that thing, a bald mangy coyote in the middle of December is nasty. But I think for me, if I were to ever go, like, let's say on a mountain lion hunt, those things are huge and they're big. I would eat it. I think I would. Like, I would skin it out, and I would obviously probably have some type of memory, mount taxidermy made from it. But I mean, it's big enough to me that it's got to have a pretty good sized backstrap. Some of those male cats, those boar cats that they kill are like, almost a couple 100 pounds.
Yeah.
So I would eat it. I mean, I think Jesse harvested a black bear, he ate it, said it was some of the best meat he'd ever had. Like if I ever get an opportunity to harvest a bear, I am going to eat it 100%. And so I don't know, I think there's more of this probably across the big pond, across the Atlantic over in Africa where you have way more big predators, if you will.
I think there's way more species in general.
Yeah, but I mean, if you break it down just to North America, I feel like for your hunting predators, I feel like you've got obviously coyote, which is all the way around. Fox could potentially be one that I would see lumped into that area. There's wolf, of course. There's mountain lion, and then down south you've got like the jaguar or the panther, if you will, the black ones, and then the two bear species, brown bear and black bear. And I think pretty much all of them, barring coyote and maybe a wolf, I would eat. And the only reason maybe not a wolf is just, I don't know, it looks like a dog, but I suppose when you put it in the frying pan, it's going to look the same. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really hard one when you think about a wolf and a coyote. But I do think it gets back to what you just said a little bit ago. It's because it looks like a dog. I think in American culture, the reason why a coyote is a pest is because it's not seen as being as like majestic and large and looming as a wolf. And right. I think since they're both like a dog, that American culture also is like, we don't want to kill that. Just like that argument, like Jim Shockey, he was strongly against this like 2 years ago. Remember that law that came down the pipeline in like Canada somewhere? And that like outlawed bear hunting? And it was like in the wake of like a young daughter and maybe like her mom, I think, got killed in their cabin just because a grizzly like broke in and killed them both. And they're protected up there, and there's no way to hunt them or control the population or anything, so they're killing people, right? And so at that point, I feel like every Disney movie everybody's ever seen, the bear is like the nice little animal, like Brother Bear, like, oh, look at this cute, cuddly little animal.
Baloo, right?
Yeah, Baloo, the bear in like the Jungle Book, and Yogi Bear.
Yogi the bear, yeah.
That's like prevent wildfires. The only movie where I think there's like a bad big-ass bear is like Fox and the Hound right there at the end, in that last scene. Other than that, I think American culture is responsible for kind of depicting the wolf as like this wild, beautiful creature, which it is. It definitely is. But if you get out into the middle of nowhere and you've got a pack of wolves coming in on you, I hope you have a lot of guns or some buddies with a lot of guns, because they'll freaking kill you.
Well,
or a bear, it will literally rip you limb from limb.
Yeah.
It's not a cute, cuddly little thing like that page that you showed me about, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, like Nature is Metal. Holy shit. If you guys want to see some wild stuff, go check out that page. It's called Nature is Metal on Instagram. That page.
And that's it is. And you just said, like, wild stuff, wild. And that is exactly what it is. I mean, people are just filming what happens on a daily basis. They just happen to catch it with their camera or their cell phone nowadays. Mm-hmm. And maybe we're going on a different tangent, and that's okay, probably. But, like, you know, we talk about eating what you kill and how we manage game. Like, if somebody goes out and hunts hogs, you know, they're using a high-powered rifle probably, and they're probably being pretty effective at it. Where, like, if you think about the natural process of things, and just like what you're talking about with these grizzly bears, like eating people, like we are one of the few, I mean, very few species, and I'm talking on the earth, humans that kill something before they eat them, and we're the only species that cooks them. But I mean, with the exception of like the river otter and some other things, most predators, I mean, they literally eat their prey alive, and it's been filmed and documented over and over and over and over. I mean, because they're there to just eat what they can, because they don't know if it's going to get up and get away or something bigger is going to come by. Like, right? They're not trying to just, you know, be humane about it. Like, we're going to, you know, break their neck or go for the jugular and then we'll feast. No. They're taking a bite of whatever they can, and they're literally eating them until they either die of exhaustion or blood loss or some combination of things. You know what I mean? I mean, so if we're doing something for the better of the environment, the species, your fauna, the ecosystem, whatever we want to call it, your area, right? I mean, we're probably doing it way more ethically than any natural component would.
Yeah, if you guys want to see a real good example of a really a way that will really open your eyes, I don't know. It's been about a year, but the caption on this page that I said, it's called Nature is Metal, and the caption is "Welcome to Hell," and it is a pack of alligators feasting on a zebra that is like still alive with its neck broken, with its skin ripped over its like forehead and off of its upper jaw. And it's still like momentarily like kicking around breathing a little bit. Yeah. And it's just like, oh my God. I think a broadhead through the rib cage is way better of a way to go out if you just run off and tip over than getting dismembered slowly by alligators, crocodiles in water, which you are not living in because you're a mammal, and just them doing it very slowly and twisting flesh off of your bones. Like, that's a terrible way to die. So, and that's a different controversy in and of itself. You know, is hunting ethical in general, not just eating what you kill. But I think we tackled that one pretty well. So, a couple other controversies coming down the line before you get off here. A couple of people have messaged in and said that we're going to be doing a two-parter, and this is a good one because whitetail season is coming, guys. And we're going to do a two-part controversy on mechanical versus fixed. One podcast devoted to each. And that'll be a good one. And then the other one that another person messaged in about was when to harvest your does. Is it more ethical to harvest your does pre-rut before they're bred or later in the year, possibly after they've all been bred? So that'll be a good one as well. But let's get you a would you rather before you get off here, okay?
Yeah.
Would you rather, and these are both raw, would you rather eat a deer heart or a liver? Both are raw.
I've done it already. When you bite a piece of deer heart, and Matt videoed it when he did his, like, it sounds like you're taking a bite out of a carrot. Like, it's like, yeah, I would definitely.
There's a crunch to it.
I feel like liver would taste like putting a piece of steel bar in your mouth. Just, I mean, they're supposed to be super high in iron, and I don't know. Couldn't tell you. I've never had raw deer liver, but I would rather take a chunk of raw deer heart, 100%.
Okay, how about an antelope or a flathead? You get, off of a big flathead, you could get 20-ish pounds of meat off of one. Matt,
What are you talking about? Eating it raw, or just like what would I rather eat?
What would you rather eat? Would you rather eat an antelope cooked how you want to cook it, or a flathead catfish? Each quantity is of the same. So if you've got like 40 pounds of antelope meat or 40 pounds of flathead catfish meat, which would you rather have?
I'm not gonna lie. Like, there's a silver lining to the question, but I'll answer it openly and honestly here. Like, just strictly catfish or flathead. Flathead. Big difference between catfish, flathead or antelope. I'm eating flathead because that stuff is like chicken of the river, man.
Yeah.
The whitest, best meat. But if you told me like I was going to harvest one and eat it, I would rather do the antelope because I feel like the experience of hunting the antelope would outweigh the consumption. So I know that's like stretching the would you rather out, but if you just had them on a plate, like 10 pounds of raw antelope and 10 pounds of raw flathead, and you're like, you can go cook them however you want, I'm taking the flathead. But if you told me inversely, like, hey, you can either go catch a flathead and eat it or go kill an antelope and eat it, I'm going to kill the antelope because I'm a glutton for glory.
Right. That's kind of like asking somebody, you can go catch a blue marlin and get about, get 300 or 400 pounds of meat off of a blue marlin out somewhere, where there's an ocean, big body of water, or you can go kill an elk.
Yeah.
No question. Yeah. I'm going to go kill the elk.
Yeah.
No question in my mind. So our launch party, big announcement.
Big
Unfortunately,
bummer, man.
Well, yeah, big bummer. But since we cannot, I guess we can. We're just saying we cannot just because of the restrictions that we would have. We would not be able to pack the theater like we were planned on, and with all the COVID restrictions, stuff would need to be like wiped down. People would need to be separated. I don't know how we would do giveaways, all that stuff, by actually adhering to the guidelines. So whatever. But we're streaming it live on Friday, July 31st, which after this podcast, which today is, what's today? Is today the
20th?
Today's the 20th, so 11 days.
Birthday. Happy birthday, Pat.
Yep, it's our father-in-law's birthday today, so big shout out to him. He's 59. And guess what's tomorrow?
Tomorrow's Tuesday.
Yeah, but why is tomorrow special?
Because it's July 21st.
No. You're dodging it. Why is it special?
Because I'm turning 30.
Yeah, old man Withers is turning 30. He's going to die soon, so everybody pay your last respects. He's definitely over the hill now.
I know. I'm out of shape, balding.
Yep.
Terrible.
You really, what have you done?
Lived a hard life.
I know. It's that smoking 10 packs a day, dude. It's catching up to you. So, Garrett's turning 30 tomorrow, so if you see Garrett on social media, which is probably where you'll see a post about it, wish him happy birthday. He's turning 30 tomorrow. But our launch party will be Friday, July 31st, so coming up in about 10 or 11 days from now in the Last Breath Inner Circle. That's our Facebook group that Garrett started. So if you're not a part of that Facebook group, then get in there, and that's where we're going to do our giveaways and show you guys all of our new film from the year. Our Last Breath Live, that's coming up on Wednesday, and we're going to go over 3 tips on how we plant turnips and get them to be the size of baseballs or softballs. So every year, Garrett and I plant turnips typically, and we've been doing it for about 10 years, and we definitely know, I would say, at this point, what makes a good turnip plot. So this big rain that we're supposed to get in the Midwest over the course of the next 3 or 5 days, we tried to get them in before that, so we planted it over the weekend. So hopefully those 3 tips that we go over in that video, again, Last Breath Live, every single Wednesday all year long, which those are going to get really sweet when we get into whitetail season, just because we're going to be able to share the bucks and does and everything and all of our successes with you as we go, which is something we've never done before. It's going to be pretty cool for us and for you guys. Those are going to be up on our YouTube channel every Wednesday. Thursdays, Throwback Thursday. Last Thursday we shared Garrett's biggest archery buck ever, a monster 160-inch 8-pointer, and a video of us killing about 5 does. So that's a sweet video. You should go back and check that out. It's 8 years old, but it's a good one. It's crazy that we've been videotaping stuff for forever.
It is, man. And I just want to say again, and I'm sure you've prefaced this before, but man, we are sorry that we can't have the launch party. We want to have it as much as everybody else, but we'd be only able to have about 25, maybe 30% of the theater full. It's not justified. The last thing we want to do is be sitting there at the doors and have to pick and choose who to let in and who to not. I mean, it just really was a tough decision for us. And just given some of the liabilities that come along with it, and this damn stigmatism that comes with the coronavirus, wholeheartedly, from me and Grant and the rest of the team, we're sorry we can't host it. We will make it up to you in 21.
Yeah, it's gonna be really good next year. Just take our word for it. We got a lot of things planned this year. I think it's gonna be a pretty solid year of killing some horned things and antlered things. But
oh yeah,
Thursday, Throwback Thursday, you can check that out every Thursday. And that's pretty much it. Thanks again for listening to the Last Breath Huntcast. If you'd like to stay linked in what we're doing on a daily basis, like I said earlier, go check out the Last Breath Inner Circle. That's where we are going to stream our launch party again about a week and a half from now on Friday, July 31st. And we're going to start that at 7 o'clock p.m. So mark your calendars. Go get a 12-pack of beer. Watch our hunting videos. Win some stuff. And it should be a good night. So bookmark that about 11 days from now. Anything before we get off here, dude?
No, sir. Just looking forward to the next one.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you guys again for listening to the Last Breath Huntcast. Don't waste it.